and Executive Vice President, Overseas Business of Tata Autocom Systems. Mr. Belani has an uncompromising commitment towards ethical behavior, safety, corporate governance, social responsibility, and hard work. His values-based approach, combined with his forward-looking vision, comprehensive planning, and the thorough execution of the team behind him, has held him in good stead in the corporate life. We welcome you, sir. I request our eminent speaker, Mr. Ashok Belani, to kindly deliver the invited lecture on the topic, Changing Face of Indian Automotive Industry.
Thank you, Monica ji. Thank you, Chairman Dr. Tyagi, for your kind and generous words, as well as your time today to be part of this session. Thank you, Professor Rathod, for giving me this opportunity, which is a matter of immense pride as well as privilege for me, being part of this great institute, and having this opportunity really swells my chest when I really share this, event with my friends, family, and other members. So thank you all for your very kind and generous words. What I am going to do is I'm going to probably share what probably I've seen happening in the auto industry for last 22 years that I've been associated with it. I think moment when we talk of cars, automotive industry, I think what fancies us the most is the thrill, the speed, the acceleration from 0 to 5 seconds getting into 100 kilometers, or the sleek looking cars, or the fancy interiors, and all those kind of things. So there is a certain element of glamour associated with automobile industry. Although this is a sunrise industry, which really indicates to some extent the health of the economy as well, that how well the economy is doing. It's an early indicator for that. But nevertheless, in this next 40-45 minutes, what I'm going to share with you is some lesser known details of this auto industry and how they are going to influence us and impact us, or rather already impacting us to some extent, and how they are going to impact us in the days to come. Now, I just want to add a little caveat here that, I'm not able to run the presentation live, so I would depend on MNIT teams to move the slides, and I would do it at my end. Probably the synchronization we'll try and do in a very seamless manner. So I think just a sec, I'm on my screen, and we move to slide 2, which is already there, on the screen. Now, as a preamble to this presentation, what I want to share with you that, as it was told, that I started my automotive career in '98, and I ended my career by superannuating in 2020. All these 2 years, even at the beginning of my career and even at the end of the career, there was one thing which was very constant. That constant thing was that there were always too much pressures, too much cost pressures in this business. And all through this journey of 22 years, there was no year where we were not under the cost pressures and trying to do improvisation, trying to increase the utilization of our assets, trying to bring more efficiencies in our processes so that we are competitive. Now, if we take a little bit, a 10,000 or 20,000 feet view of this industry globally, I want to share that globally today, the installed manufacturing capacity in the automotive industry is for something like 120 million vehicles. And as it stands, the brains of the industry or the thinkers of the industry forecast that this year, the demand is going to be there anywhere between 81 to 85 million vehicles for this year, which means that there is an excess capacity in this industry, which is continuously being augmented also vis-a-vis the demand. So the capacity is much ahead of the demand, and demand is trying to catch up. In other words, if you see, if these numbers are to be correct, and which I think probably are very correct, there's a utilization of only 65% of the installed capacity in the industry globally. So consequently, I mean, this is a very capital intensive industry. There are huge investments in that. And if you have something like 35% of unutilized capacity, to my mind, this is criminal. And this is the reason that when you go and buy a car and enter into a showroom, the sales guys over there do everything possible to make sure that you come out with their car only and do not go to the adjacent showroom. So I've seen that this is one constant thing which keeps challenging the industry, which breeds innovation. And it has also given, world-class manufacturing processes like Toyota manufacturing system or TPS and such kind of a great, innovations in the process industry, so that there is a high level of utilization as well as a good amount of efficiency. Having said that, I still want to tell you the three distinct things which I notice in this industry. This industry works with scale of economy. And if it is not there, then you really struggle in this business. You got to have a cutting edge technology, and the cutting edge technology has a shelf life of certain years only, because in the long run, everything becomes a commodity only. But you've got to be ahead in the game in this by innovating new technologies. And third is, in this business, you've got to have deep pockets. I think unless the deep pockets are there, it will be very difficult to really survive. Just want to share with you that if any OEM starts a new company or a new factory, it takes him at least 5 to 6 years to break even before he makes any penny of profit. So these are the three characteristics of this industry, which is scale of economy, technology, deep pockets. And this is very much required to really be a winner in this game and be a player of any cognizance worth mentioning. I would like to move to the next slide, which is about the Indian automotive industry, slide 4. And in this industry, what I'm attempting to give you is some dimensional aspect of Indian automotive industry particularly. Perhaps it might be known, but few things may, for those colleagues who are not aware, that we are the world's 7th largest commercial vehicle manufacturing country, I would say. We are the 5th largest as far as the heavy truck manufacturing is concerned. We are world's 4th largest passenger vehicle manufacturing company. And of course, we are the world's the largest two-wheeler company, besides being the largest agri tractor manufacturing company. We leave behind guys like John Deere or Case New Holland in terms of numbers. And I hope you're not surprised when I tell you that the Mahindra is world's largest tractor manufacturing company. This industry contributes almost 7% of its revenue, which is equivalent to India's 22% manufacturing GDP and 7% of the overall GDP of the country. It gives employment to a lot of people like me. Almost 32 million people are employed by this industry, both direct and indirect. When I say direct and indirect, it includes the suppliers also in this industry, besides the OEM like Toyota or Tata Motors or something like that. In year 2019, we produced 28.6 million vehicles in total, of which 4.2 million vehicles were light vehicles. And in fact, 3.6 million vehicles were the passenger vehicles, which were produced in this industry. Now, the question would be that we are talking in 2021, and why am I talking of 2019 numbers? Well, my view on this is that as far as automotive is concerned, 2020 and 21 were kind of I would say, aberrations in the history of global automotive industry and Indian automotive industry. And if we take those numbers of 20 and 21, probably the picture may be deceptive and may adversely impact the future years to come. So, which is why I'm in a mature year like 2019, I've kept as the basis to really share with you these dimensional aspects of this industry. Now, this huge pie, which we are talking of so many million vehicles, we'll see in the next slide, which is slide 5, how this is segmented. What we produce 77% of two-wheelers. We produce 15% of the light vehicles, which are largely passenger, and some of them are for commercial purpose also. 4% of the three-wheelers, and 3% of tractors, and 1% of medium and heavy commercial vehicles. But this size, this pie is enjoyed by, I would say, as far as light and heavy commercial vehicles are concerned, is enjoyed by 11 players, of which there is a combination of global as well as Indian players. 10 players in tractors, 7 players in three-wheelers, 19 in passenger vehicle, and 12 in two-wheelers. Almost everybody of any remote significance also is operating into this market. And for a moment, I think we can park the question of Ford and General Motors for a little later, or maybe if anybody has a question, I can attempt to answer. But everybody of any cognizance has been in this game in India, trying to get the size of the pie in their favor compared to their peers. I would request if we move to slide number 6. Now, slide number 6, it's a little crowded slide, but I think it makes a very important point. And I find this is something very peculiar, or to some extent, I may say that unique of Indian market. Let's say passenger cars. There are 19 players operating in this arena. But the bulk of the share, which is 70% or more, is only enjoyed by the top 3 players. The rest all are in the chiller game. You see, even Toyota, which is such a global giant, is having a market share of 4%, 3%. Volkswagen, which is the #1 company in the world, if you club all their brands, they don't even have any, significant share to worth mentioning of. And this phenomena cuts across, I would say, all the, segments of the industry, whether it is a commercial vehicle, whether it is a tractor. Commercial vehicle is dominated still by Tata Motors, Mahindra, and Ashok Leyland. And you'll be surprised that Mahindra has got larger numbers than the Ashok Leyland, because it includes some light commercial vehicles also, like Maximo, which is used for intercity travel and all that, which gets factored into this. Similarly, tractor is dominated by Mahindra, TAFE, and Sonalika. Similarly, three-wheelers is dominated by Bajaj, Piaggio, and TVS. And the phenomena continues for the, two-wheelers also between Hero, Honda, and Bajaj. And this is very peculiar, These 3 guys are always dominating this market and would continue to do so, leaving the rest of the market to some 10 or 12 guys to really fight it out and see what they can make sense about it. Now, these were the dimensional aspects which I just wanted to share to set the perspective. And before we really come to the Indian part, I would just like to spend some time between us, to share with you that what is happening globally, what are the kind of challenges, and in which direction the technology is moving to somehow address those challenges. And we would move to slide 7 or 8. Now, if I talk about the concerns about environment and pollutions, there's nothing new I'm going to really talk. This is a concern across the world, across the globe. And some of automobiles have this stigma that they are one of the largest polluters of CO2 and NOx level in the environment. So what happened is a few years back, some globally, while I must say that while governments of the nations are doing their bit, the sovereign governments are working out the policy frameworks and guidelines to really control the pollution. States are playing their role across the world and in India also to really see that how they promote greener fuels and greener vehicles. But now the matter has been taken by the cities also in their hands. The city mayors are controlling the things for their sphere of influences, the geography which is under their control. And few years back, a consortium of C40 cities was formed to provide the climate leadership between these cities. Today, although it is named as still C40 cities, but it has expanded to 90 odd mega cities across the world. And if we really add up to the population of these cities which are member of C40 group, it almost contributes, 650 odd million people in this group, which really combined, if the GDP coming from these cities is almost 25%. So you see that the kind of a muscle which is being developed to really address the concerns of the pollution. And not only that, I think recently the European Union has drawn a plan which is called as FIT 55, FIT 55, and they are committed to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by almost 55% by offering 55% by 2030 by encouraging the environmental friendly vehicles and giving a lot of subsidy and benefits for the electrical vehicles in their cities. Cities are doing, apart from giving these economic support and all, they are doing their other bit also in offering alternate mobility solutions, not only the cars. Because of my assignment, I had to travel to Paris very frequently, and I used to see very, I would say, rich and very well-doing people coming on bicycles. They also used to come to work on those typical tricycles. I don't know what exact word is there, which has got a very flat board and two wheels where you slide through one leg and then jump on the other leg and drive down. I used to see many cycles which were single-wheeled, and people with their bag and backpack on their shoulders used to drive to the work and all that. So there's a lot of alternate mobility solutions were also being worked out. And in fact, Paris alone is spending not less than $300 million to convert 50 kilometers of the car lanes into the bike lanes to encourage the driving of the bikes and using those strips for the alternate mobility and all that. Now, when all this is happening, the consumer behavior is also changing around the world, and they are also trying to really adopt to these changes and all that. We have heard on and off in the newspapers that so-and-so country has declared, Norway being the leader, that the IC engines will be totally abolished or closed down by 2030. Some says by 2035, some says by 2040. So everybody has their own timeline to really get rid of the IC engines. But let me also share with you that a lot of cities, and let's go to slide number 9, that a lot of cities have committed that they have signed a declaration that they want to bar the diesel vehicles by 2025. And whether this is going to happen or not, probably they are more serious in Europe than what we are in India. Although some of the cities in India are also signatories to this fact. For instance, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi NCR, Jaipur, Mumbai are signatories to this, that they want to ban ban diesel engines, although they have not been very explicit on the time frame of it. But diesel is becoming a kind of a villain in the whole piece of the environmental pollution that is coming. And it has attained a lot of negativity, which I would share in the next slide, which is slide number 10. And let's move to that. Now, see, we all read and tried to go deeper into it also to understand that in 2015, if you remember, and if I'm not wrong, it was a time frame of September 2015 when the Dieselgate scandal broke out, when it turned out that the Volkswagen, the prestigious German manufacturer and the largest vehicle manufacturer in the world, who keeps beating Toyota also in the numbers, had equipped millions of diesel cars with a software that made them appear that diesel cars with this software are appearing cleaner during the emission test. And thereafter, a lot of hue and cry was there. Drivers also argued that they had suffered damages because of the emitting pollution coming. You would have read that a lot of cases got filed up in United States, and a few people were prosecuted and convicted. And Volkswagen was compelled to cough out a couple of $1 billion to really address the penalties which were there, which were levied by them, by the United States government and the Congress over there. All this has led to a terrible loss of credibility between the OEM. And when I use the word OEM, what I mean is the vehicle manufacturer or the car manufacturer. So there's a loss of trust deficit is there between the OEMs and the users thereafter this incident, particularly on the diesel cars. Okay, diesel has now become a piece of villain and people are abandoning diesel vehicles. Okay, although there is a parallel theory which Bosch keeps arguing that diesel is more friendly than gasoline, but there are not many buyers for that. Consequent to this, governments are doing a lot of measures across the world to really set the target for car manufacturing companies arising out of this experience. Indian government also has really defined, and they have defined that by 2027, I think our engines which will be produced in India should have a CO2 emission of almost 95 grams per kilometer kind of a thing, which is a hell of a task. And the industry is still yielding out of the burden of implementing Euro 6 by jumping Euro 5 straight away from Euro 4. So governments are also toughening their stance, but nevertheless, the industries are also responding. I would move to slide number 11 to take you through. In Europe, particularly after the Dieselgate, where once diesel used to command a market share of 58%, it has fallen 45% in 17-18, and thereafter it is falling further in favor of gasoline and the alternate fuel which is there. Now, this is the kind of a scenario which is happening in the automotive industry, and let's attempt together to really understand that what is happening. Consequent to this, we'll move to slide 12. And here I'm trying to really share with you that CO2 emission reduction is really driving the whole game. People are working in manufacturing more and more cleaner engines, reducing the CO2 levels. This is giving push to electrification also. And there are certain norms, CAFE norms, which will come in India in 22, 23. But in Europe, those norms are there where there are huge penalties on the OEMs or the car makers to quickly move towards electrification and all that. And there are even, other, I would say, systems being touched like transmission and automation system, where people are moving more and more towards automatic cars and having start-stop function, so that in a crowded area or in a signal area, the car stops for it. So your combustion stops, you don't burn the fuel and don't emit the fuel. And even auxiliaries, I would say, for example, let's instance take this vehicle lighting system. What used to be the halogen bulbs and all are moving to LED, because LED consumes lesser power than the halogen, this thing. Since it's a lesser power coming from battery charging would reduce and the engine will operate for a lesser time when it is on the LED light systems. So every possible thing is being done to really see that even if some milligrams of emission also can be reduced, and there's a lot of consciousness in the I would say developed nations, which is percolating to our country also, which we would be discussing in little more depth in the slides to come. I would move to slide 13. Now, with this kind of environment in the world, more so in the developed nations, I see there are three revolutions which are happening across the globe. First revolution, we all know, is electrification. And there's a lot of buzz and noise in our own country also. But my views are slightly, not entirely diametrically different, but slightly different than what is happening in the developed world. And we would discuss that. The world is moving, as far as the cars are concerned, towards digital mobility, connected cars. And since there is a lot of scarcity of drivers in the developed nations and they're pretty expensive, if you are having a driver over there, then you are somebody in the society. And I'm sure there are quite a few $1 million or euros in your saving bank account also. So the cars are becoming autonomous cars. And there are a lot of people who are working on that, OEMs as well as the tier ones like the companies where I had worked. And I just want to share with you the company, my last company, Valeo, which is a French company. They developed an autonomous car sometime in 2015, which went around the Paris city couple of times without any accident. Thereafter, the geography got extended to France. And the effort was to really see the reliability of the vehicle by running thousands of kilometers to see if any glitches are there and overcome them. And this car is still running somewhere in Europe as we speak. So these are the three revolutions which are going to shape up the developed world automobile industry, and how this is going to reflect on us and how it's going to impact on us. We would talk in the next slide, which is slide moving to 14 and then 15. Now, before I really get into the depth of the matter and share my thoughts with you over here, what I want to show you that Indian automobile sale or the production has been a good story. If you would see that in 2018, we did something like 4.7 million vehicles. When it comes to 2019, we saw a dip of 4.7 to becoming 4.2 million vehicles. And that is the time you would recollect that post demonetization, the effects of slowing economy were more visible. And I think in that year, our GDP also came around 5 or something like that. And then we were struck by this lockdowns, closures, and in 2020, which partly continued in 2021 also. So 2020, the sale dropped to 2.8 million. And by talking to various experts, reading some mails and reading some communications, reading some articles, looking at the forecast which are being done by experts like LMC, talking to some of the OEMs, I see that by March 2022, we should be back in the game of growth, and we should register a growth which should quantify into 3.7 million vehicles. And then again, gradually take off from there for a growth of 7% on a CAGR basis between 22 and 25, and then move towards more accelerated growth thereafter. Mind you, this green line is a crystal ball gazing. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. But based on the facts, data, and understanding available at this point of time, this is, I would not say my best, but my most rational assessment at this point of time. Now, sharing the picture with you, if this growth is going to grow, or maybe it's going to unleash the conservatism that I have built in this growth, then this growth is not going to come in isolation of the challenges. It's not going to be a smooth sailing. Today, even to reach 3.7 million vehicles, you see, every commodity is shooting out of the roof, whether it's aluminum, whether it is copper, whether it is steel. It's the scarcity which is really, really hitting very hard. Crude is showing a sign of hovering around 80, 85, which has a direct impact on the polymers like PP, PAC, and all those kind of things, which are becoming very expensive. And their availability also is a challenge, and not to talk much about the scarcity caused by the semiconductors across the world. But nevertheless, this is, as I said, is my conservatism. And other than these momentary challenges, let's see what are the inherent challenges which we see in the days to come. I am on slide number 17. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that still we have a very growing population, although the population is deaccelerating, but definitely year on year, we are registering growth. And this growth is resulting in a lot of urbanization, where people are still moving towards larger cities in the hope of getting brighter future, in the hope of getting lucrative jobs and all that. And this trend of urbanization is going to continue for a while. Should this continue, there's no stopping. I think there will be more vehicles or vehicle growth on the roads also, which is very inevitable. Now, if this status continues and it goes that way, the mobility problems are going to further intensify. We have seen it as population moves, as grows, as GDP grows, There's an increased car ownership, which fuels the aspirations because of the, I would say, higher disposable income these days, with youngsters, with IT jobs, and with very, startups and all those kind of things. So to meet those aspirations, there's bound to be the increased car ownership, which we are going to see. And if the cars are going to increase, there is going to be more fuel consumption, more mileages being traveled. And possibly in this arena, what's going to happen is that there are going to be, the environment is going to unleash some dazzling series of innovations which are designed towards new things, which are designed more keeping in focus the urban roads, such as mobility as a service, which we are watching through Uber, Ola, Meru, and others. There are going to be advanced traffic management systems. And I really want to share with you, Pune city, one day in some kind of urgency, I might have jumped a signal. And within few hours, a picture of my jumping the signal with my car plate number was in my mobile phone. And I was asked to, pay a penalty of 500 rupees, which I did. But that has thereafter injected a sense of responsibility more and more on me because of these systems getting introduced. And I see that everywhere you go, parking systems are being designed, new freight sharing solutions are coming into existence, and new concepts of transportations, particularly, two-wheeler and three-wheeler is going to emerge further. And we'll really go through them in a little more length as we go along. But for the time being, I would like to move to slide number 18. Now, what we have seen is we have a growing population, which is resulting in urbanization, and the urbanization is going to lead to the vehicle growth. But what are the challenges? We have a very high degree of accidents on our road. Consequently, the fatalities. Each one of us suffers through heavy congestion wherever we go in cities, from point A to B, and you have to really plan it. What time of the hour you are leaving, what time would be the best to really cover that distance. Consult Mr. Google and plan your journey. And when the congestion is there, when the cars are going to be there, pollution is a serious issue for our country, more so compared to any other nation, I would say. Please move to slide number 19. And what I really want to share with you, perhaps you know that every year we see 500,000 road accidents every year on Indian roads. Of this, there are 150,000 casualties. We lose 150,000 lives every year on the roads. While Mr. Gadkari is very proud of the fact that, before he took over, Indian roads were we were laying something like 9 to 11 kilometers of highways every day, which has now jumped to something like 43, 44, 45 kilometers a day, which is very appreciable. But I must really salute Mr. Gadkari also, who's equally candid in admitting that he did not succeed despite his best efforts in reducing these accidents, which lead to losing of these lives. And losing of this life doesn't mean, it's in isolation. It really means it's definitely a big public health issue, but it's also an economic one also. And I think we shave off a couple of fractions of points in our GDP because of these accidents. Similarly, congestion, which is a very serious problem that we have, someone has really estimated that in 4 metros alone, or 4 big cities alone, we have an estimated loss of $22 billion because of the congestion and the consequential impacts because of that. And if you were to go in the normal times from point A to point B, it may take you almost 2.5 times more when you go in the peak hours. That is the pathetic state that we are in. I remember a couple of years we all had read in newspaper that in Gurugram, there was a heavy congestion happened where people probably had to, people were stuck for hours together and probably throughout the night also. So it's a very, very serious kind of a problem that we have. And all this throws us towards, having a dubious distinction that 14 of our Indian cities figure among the 20 most polluted cities in the world. Similarly, in congestion, our 4 cities have the dubious distinction to appear in the top 10 congested cities in the world. And though I said dubious distinction, but then this is shared by Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Pune, from where I'm speaking. It's really terrible situation. And technology is moving in this direction to really see how we can address some of these issues. We'll move to slide 20. Now, similar to the rest of the world, diesel has become also very bad fuel in India. It is becoming a very negative fuel. There was a time in 2012 and 13 where there was a price disparity of almost 25 rupees in favor of diesel per liter. Since 2017-18 and till today, this disparity has narrowed down to 9 and 10 rupees. And when you work out the total cost of ownership, it really doesn't really give you the advantage which diesel otherwise used to give. The fact remains that the diesel cars, like-to-like basis, are more expensive than the gasoline cars. And as a result, diesel is less preferred car as of today. And this year, I think the share of diesel has fallen only to 17%, which used to be at one point of time something like 51% and 47% and all. It has got reduced to 17% now, and the gain goes to gasoline and alternate fuels also, like CNG. Maruti cars running on the CNG, particularly the taxi segment, and some private segments or owners also have moved to CNG cars as a safer fuel or as a more environmental friendly fuel. I would request if we move to slide number 21 as of now. Now, we spoke about accidents, we spoke about congestion, we spoke about pollution. How are these things getting addressed? Now, I very firmly believe that COVID is aberration. The scientists, the doctors, and recently Mr. Guleria also said that February 2022, I think life should become normal, very similar to the pre-COVID days. Lot of us in India own car, but much more of us are not able to afford car or do not want to have a car because of the problems that we have associated with the parking and the pollutions and the congestions. So I still believe that shared mobility has still a big future. The ride-hailing companies have done their bit and they are continuously doing bit to make you travel safely in the shared mobility environment by regularly sanitizing it and taking further steps. So I feel that shared mobility is still going to play a much bigger role in the days to come. There would be, now I want to really take a discussion slightly away. Like I said before, that governments, states, and cities are doing their bit to really see that electrification gets pushed. But Government of India is thinking very differently, and I really admire them for that. They are not being prescriptive at all कि आप electrification पे जाइए, although they are giving some kind of a benefit, subsidies, and all those kind of things. They have very clearly defined for the car makers that year on year, these are the emission norms which need to be adhered when you make vehicle, and those would get certified by ARI before the vehicle is homologated to drive on the Indian roads. Now, how you achieve these targets, that is your issue. You are free to do whichever it is. You want to go for mild hybrid, go for it. You want to go for full hybrid, go for it. You want to go for environmental friendly fuels like CNG, go for it. You want LPG, go for it. You want to go for ethanol, go for it. You want to go for electrification, you go for electrification. So they have defined a framework of green mobility rather than electrification. And they are promoting through the policy framework more and more greener vehicles in India. And that is the reason you would appreciate that Maruti is still not very gung-ho on the hybrid vehicles as much it is more on CNG and these kind of vehicles or mild hybrid. Because the moment you go for hybrid, you are paying for two powertrains. One is a motor and the other is the IC engine. Can really be, there'll be a point. Today, probably the affordability will be an issue, but there'll be a point where everything will get absorbed and with the increased disposable income. There was a stage, we all know, that people were preferring to buy car without a AC and get the AC retrofitted cheaply. But today there is no car which is sold without AC. Everybody wants to buy AC and AC has got absorbed. So the automakers are developing technologies to support these new concepts of green mobility, connected vehicles, and autonomous and shared mobility. Now, when I use the word autonomous, it's not a driverless car which would come in, India. I think, again, I would quote Mr. Gadkari. He was very adamant to the fact that, he doesn't want, autonomous car or driverless cars to come to India. Yes, he's very sure, he's very right, because if the autonomous car comes and they are affordable, we would have a huge problem on the employment as far as the drivers are concerned. Not only in India, we will have to also, accept and, what do I say, probably we'll have to take care of our countrymen who are driving vehicles in countries like UAE, Dubai and all that, because they will also become jobless. So what's going to happen is, in my view, that autonomous vehicles will be very differently defined. You would have some functions which are autonomous, and they would assist the driver rather than totally driving the car. For instance, autonomous electric brake. What will happen is you will have a front camera on your car, and let us say that you're driving on some, street or something, and it's possible in India that a goat comes or a cow comes in front of you after a few hundred yards or whatever it is. So the camera is going to take the picture. This picture would, in nanoseconds, would be sent to the cloud, which would be managed by the car company. That cloud would have a library of photos and try to match, okay, what is this thing which is likely to come in front of the car. And a quick assessment would be made and a signal will be sent to your car, to either slow down or apply the brake when you're driving and keep you safe. Or, already I think MG Rover or Volkswagen or somebody have started offering collision avoidance features, or lane departure warning systems, or parking assist. Now, in Europe, there are Car and Valuers, one of the company who has developed it, that when you go to a restaurant, just get down in the portico, just give a signal to your mobile phone by pressing something, and the car, with the help of radars or lidars or scanners or the ultrasonic sensors which are there, will go and find a parking place in the parking lot. And whether it is a parallel parking or a horizontal parking, it would be smart enough to go and park itself. And when you have finished your nice dinner or a lunch, you can call the car to the portico and it will drive automatically itself. This may take time. It will happen one day. You cannot stop the technology. And today the world is barrierless. It's going to happen. But I think it would be a while by the time it happens in India. And I don't see this happening for another 5 to 7 years. Everything, in India gets very accepted. I'll give a very simpler example. Few years back, when I used to travel, I used to see the blinkers on the outside rear view mirror systems. And they used to blink and all that. And hamari gaadi mein to kuch hota hi nahi tha aisa. But very soon, even if they were expensive and they were meant for BMWs and Mercedes, they got adopted for the Indian markets. And even now a B car or B segment car, which is a typical hatchback, comes with this kind of a blinker system available over there. We have the scale of economy, and scale of economy is going to play the role in customizing these systems and making it more affordable for our users. So, as I said that before, that the real value of these drivers will be in providing, say, input to the driver. When we talk of connected and safer cars, the driver behavior, how is he driving, the information on route congestion would be available. The information on fuel consumption would be available through the connected cars. Today, when the fuel level drops down, my car is asking the option that which petrol pump can I take you? Can I navigate you to so-and-so petrol pump? And if I press a particular petrol pump of a Shell or a Bharat or something, then it takes me to the nearest dealer for the fueling. So all these kind of features are going to grow more and more. Infotainment and all is going to come. And connectivity, I would say particularly, is going to be very beneficial for the fleet management. And it is, maybe in the personal vehicles, some of these features may initially be available for niche vehicles, but eventually they are going to improve the affordability and get into, all the cars, so that these problems of accidents, pollutions, and congestions get resolved in our driving experience. We would now move to slide number 27. I think this is a broadly repeat of what I said, but what we are seeing is there's a lot of buzz happening in last particularly 4 or 5 months, ever since I would say the curbs of COVID-19 were getting lifted. We are talking of e-mobility. Now, I still see e-mobility as a distant possibility when it comes to four-wheeler. Two-wheelers and three-wheelers are the really early candidates. The reason being that when you compare the total cost of ownership of a IC engine two-wheeler or a three-wheeler, which means cost of the vehicle, which means fuel required for running it for 5 years, which means insurance, road tax, blah, 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 whatever it comes, I think the e-scooters or e-two-wheelers or e-auto rickshaws have reached a parity level. They have crossed the inflection point in some cases, and they are a little cheaper than the IC engines also. So these are our early candidates. Here, since they would be driven in the cities, the concern of range anxiety is not going to be so much, because you're not going to drive a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler from Pune to Mumbai, say 140 kilometers or something like that. You're going to drive at the end of the day in cities something like 30, 45, 50 kilometers at best. Charging is going to be simple. You can probably charge it at your home. Otherwise, for the commercial ones also, now the concept of swapping the battery is taking place. You just give an uncharged battery the way you give a empty gas LPG cylinder to your homecoming hawker and take a filled one. Same way the battery swapping is happening. So two-wheelers and three-wheelers will attain a good amount of maturity. And I really see that by 27, 28, maybe 100% of two-wheelers and three-wheelers may move to electrification. And probably by that time, the battery cost in terms of kilowatt hours is going to come down, and the affordability improves for four-wheelers, and we reach an inflection point where it makes sense for us to buy four-wheeler car which is electric. Of course, Tata Motors is succeeding with Nexon and all, but mind you, I should be saying this, but nevertheless, I must tell you that recently you saw that $1 billion was pledged by a fund to invest into the e-mobility side of Tata Motors, and suddenly their share price shot up. But on this electric cars, they have not made one single rupee as a profit. Okay, they are running as losses. They want to capture the market and then move forward to better days, hoping that the cost factors which are there would come in control. So I still feel introduction at a fairly good scales, let's say 30% of vehicles being electric, could be 2030 or onwards period, I would say. These are the big technological changes which I really see happening, which are going to help us address some of our challenges. We would move to slide number 23 to see some more things, which are little characteristics of this industry. One is, as I said, that big three are controlling the 70% market, and this phenomena would continue. We would keep coming up with value for money solutions for the market, and people today are willing to cough up a little bit extra while buying the vehicle, if they do appreciate and realize that इसके लिए 20,000 या 30,000 देने से मुझे ये फीचर मिल रहा है, and they see a return for value for money, I think this trend will continue. Because of our policy framework, bulk of the market is still going to be less than 4-meter car. As far as the distance of the wheelbase is concerned, we would not have, long cars which we see, the animal kind of a things which we see in the United States. We are going to be away from that. Cars which are designed exclusive for Indian markets would be more successful. And I think Quid, Baleno, Brezza, Tribber have really set the example. They were designed, developed for Indian market. Baleno was done for Indian market. And thereafter it is being exported to Japan. This trend is going to continue. I spoke to you about two-wheelers and three-wheelers being the first candidates of electrification. We also spoke about three revolutions already. I do see that, there's a change in ownership of the model going to happen. Now, it's very ironical that this industry, which lays a lot of emphasis on asset utilization, efficiency improvements, ironically produces a vehicle which is grossly underutilized. You take your car in the morning, go to the workplace, reach there at 9 o'clock, park your car, you leave your workplace at 6 p.m. to go to home. 9 to 6, this asset for which you have spent quite a few lakh of rupees is lying idle. There's no use of it over there. It's just, getting dust and heat and exposed to, I would say, environmental corrosion or whatever you would like to call it. And then again, 6 o'clock, you pick up the car, go home, reach at 7 o'clock. And then again, from evening 7 to next day morning 8, the vehicle is lying underutilized. So this is the irony of this industry. But what I see, the way you subscribe for a magazine, that you buy a subscription and you pay for it, and whenever you want to stop the week or India Today, you can stop it and do that. Similar kind of a subscription models are coming up with these car companies. And I'm using the word car companies. I want to really caution you that these guys are, or car companies, the OEMs are now attempting to define themselves very differently. They're not calling themselves as a car company anymore. And they are trying to brand themselves as a mobility solution provider. And that is the reason you would have seen that Hyundai picked up some investment in Ola. Mahindra picked up some investment in Meru, which was a kind of I would say, a sizable stake. And similarly, other companies, including Tata Motors, also have spent in some mobility companies and startups because they are trying to change their way of working. So I see the car subscription model will come. You want a particular brand or particular model of a car, you will go for a subscription, which means you don't have to pay upfront those 5, 10, 15, 20 lakhs and all that. The road, you don't have to get into the botherations of road tax, insurance, pollution approval and all that. You would continue to pay a fee. Okay. Let's say you took a subscription for
Ajay ji, are we still connected?
Belani Saab, can you hear us?
Yeah, the voice is reaching, but somehow I'm not able to start the audio. I hope you guys are able to have a look at me. Is it?
You're able to hear you and you can continue your presentation.
You are audible and you please continue with your presentation.
I don't know which slide we lost each other. Monica ji, can you share with me what was the slide number where we were there together?
Sir, I think it was 21.
27, no, 27.
So 27 or 20.
You were talking about a lot of changing trends.
Yeah. So that was slide 23.
Okay.
Which had blue bubbles. Which had blue bubbles. Are we there on that?
Yes, yes, yes.
So we spoke about diesel getting dropping. I feel diesel will die down, and it would only remain for
To his hotspot.
Thank you.
working in that direction. These things are going to happen. Few more things may happen also. For example, a lot of Maruti cars are with something called AMT, which is automatic manual transmission. Of course, I see slowly the end. The automobiles further in our industry. We move to slide number 24. This is just to really quickly cap that government has been very consciously giving directions to this industry and trying to see that there's a policy stability. In 2018, they introduced a policy promoting the green mobility. To improve the safety, something similar to the Euro NCAP, they introduced Bharat NCAP in 2019. They are in 2020, we saw Euro 6 came into existence, straight away jumping from Euro 4 to Euro 6, skipping Euro 5, and CAFE norms are going to be there in 2022. Already for promoting green mobility, there are benefits like FAME 2, which may expire, but I'm definite that there will be some form of FAME2 which will find extension or probably a new label to it. This is going to be there. Scrapping of old vehicle is further going to help in reducing the pollutions in the vehicle. And these driver assistance systems are going to come more and more in this vehicle in milder forms. Now, with this, I've completed saying what I had to say, but I'm still tempted to take, a little bit more time in going to slide number 25. As I understood, there are quite a few students who are there on this call, and I'm tempted to share some thoughts, for their benefit, and thereafter end my presentation. I want you to really think about water. The water which is flowing in this picture, this is a typical characteristics of water, that it keeps flowing. When the water flows, it takes shit also along with it, and it takes flower petals also along with it. I think in life, we need to keep moving forward like water. We need to keep taking evils and goods both together with us, but keep moving forward the way water is moving forward. You will see in the second picture, I think there are some stones or rocks in the path of the water. Whether these are impediments, these are obstructions, these are some kind of hindrances. I think these things would come in life, but water finds its ways and it keeps moving forward. I think I've done this in my professional and personal life, and it has held me in good stead. Of course, we all want to grow. We want to grow rapidly like a coconut tree. But you see what tree does. Tree does, it expects everybody to look up to it, and it would look down on others. I think this would not help. We need to keep moving towards like water, keep flowing. And when water doesn't flow, and it's stagnated, only mosquitoes and disease breed. So in life, we need to move forward, keep moving like water. And I'm sure since a lot of my eminent colleagues who are going to get into the professional world, if they probably keep this in mind, things would be much better for them as they face challenges in the world outside. So thank you all. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. And I really feel once again honored and privileged to speak in front of you. And you have been a great audience. Thank you so much.